Okay, so this is question F. Question F says, discuss the economic policies that Singapore could adopt to maintain its competitiveness, minimize the impact on employment as it moves to decarbonize the economy. This is quite tough. Okay, so this is a 10-mark question, so 10 is 7 plus 3, so you want to make sure you evaluate. Policies means should be 2 policies because it's plural. Singapore could adopt to maintain its competitiveness and minimize. Okay, so these are our goals, right? So the first goal is to maintain its competitiveness. This is goal number 1. And to minimize the impact on employment. So this is goal number 2. Okay, so if you want to place it down, so you want to have policy number 1 that helps, and then you have your end state is to maintain competitiveness. Okay, so this is your first goal, and then you want to minimize the impact on employment. Okay, whatever that means. Minimize impact on employment. Okay, so I have policy 1 and then policy 2. Ideally, we should try to shift to attack both, right? The one policy can attack both, right? And then policy 2 maybe also can attack both. But this is ideal, so you wouldn't know whether the policy that you've selected can target both or not, right? Especially now that you have no ideas, right? So maybe just erase this first. So we don't actually know this, yeah. Okay, let's see whether there's any. Then you want to check whether there's any other part of the question you haven't answered yet. And so that's here, right? As it moves to decarbonize the economy. Okay, so this one, so I'm guessing here. So if you if let's say this is the first time you're reading a question, you also have to be guessing, right? So this, let's call this, how do I run off alphabet? So let's say this is like vector x, right? So this move to decarbonize your economy can either, number 1, influence the policies that you selected, right? But we have to read more. We have to read the extract to see whether it influences it this way. Or I'm assuming it can influence the mechanism. So we wouldn't know that, yeah? Whether the move to decarbonize will influence our policy selection, okay, or influence the way we explain the policy. So either way it can work, okay? So then you check again. Okay, I've checked through. I have 2 policies. I got my goals correct. Move to decarbonize the economy. Make sure I evaluate. So a lot of moving parts for this. Okay. So then if you're like me, then you probably, as you do this question, you wouldn't know how to move forward. So I think a good way to start is let's see what the extract says about this. Okay. So this is extract 7, and then extract 7 says that in effort to turn Singapore into a bright green spark, it has to ensure that competitiveness is maintained and the impact on jobs and livelihoods is minimized. So this is where this paragraph probably would have motivated that question. Okay, but it's not very helpful. They don't really tell you anything. Okay, then we read on. They say that Singapore is doing this New Deal thing, right? That investments, Singapore even. Oh, sorry, it's a Korean New Deal. But like basically policies that aim to decarbonize the economy can actually create advanced technology and skills that can create jobs. So policies that help to decarbonize the economy can aim to create jobs. Okay, fine. Doesn't really help me. Okay, then this is where we talk about Singapore's green plan. So extract 6 talks about Singapore's green plan, and here we actually do have something that's significant, right? So so again here, this is what they are saying. Again, this doesn't really help you, but just sort of motivates the question. Okay, so here's the reason why they asked the question. Okay, but here is helpful. Here here they said that they were doing something for transport, that they were building 60,000 electric charging points at public car parks and airports, right? So this is a policy that you can write, okay? And then you check, is it in line with decarbonization? Okay, if it is, then see and think about how it helps to maintain competitiveness and minimize the impact on employment. We will settle that later, okay? Okay, then we go next. Last item, they mentioned also about something about the expansion and renewal of the rail network. This is not yet implemented, so it's therefore something that Singapore could do. So expansion of the rail network. Okay, so it's another policy you can write. You check again, does this help to decarbonize the economy? Yes. So if it's yes, that can be another way you decide that this is the policy you want to write about. Okay, so what do we have now? I have policy 1 as 2, right? I have 1 is about the EV charging stations, and second one is about the rail network. So maybe let's group this together and then just call it infrastructure spending. So this is one policy I can use. And then let's see whether we can link policy number 1, infrastructure spending, which entails EV charging as well as the rail network, and how it does two things: how it maintains competitiveness and helps to minimize the impact on employment. Okay, this one I think we can do. Minimize the impact on employment means it helps to decrease unemployment. This one we can just go through G and AD, right? We draw a diagram and say that, oh, here's how it lowers unemployment. Maintains competitiveness means that you want to keep the GPL low. So maybe you go backwards. Okay, sorry, you shouldn't write backwards here. Erase this. Okay, so GPL low, so you want to keep the COP low. I think we can link infrastructure spending to COP, so we'll do that. Okay, but it looks like they didn't really tell us about another policy. So I want a policy, so maybe let's just use another color. So policy 2, I want a policy that is related to decarbonization, can help to maintain competitiveness, and if possible, minimize the impact on unemployment. Let's use R&D. So R&D, it can be linked to decarbonization. Why my pencil is not working? Okay, linked to decarbonization. So you've checked off this, right? This is possible. Can it be linked to competitiveness? Yes, can, right? Because it increases productivity and lowers COP. So can. Minimize the impact on employment. This is a bit difficult. So employment we don't know. Okay, if you can link it, you can go ahead. Okay, but if you cannot, it's fine. At least we attack the question already. We check all parts of the question. So this is going to be my rough structure. I'll talk about policy 1. Then here's how the policy works. It must be related to decarbonization and how it attains the 2 goals, which is maintain competitiveness and employment. Then I move on to policy 2 because it's in plural. So I need to talk about policy 2, we talk about R&D, and then we link it. This is okay to use. So in the description of R&D, you want to talk something about green technology and link it to decarbonization. At the end state is you need to talk about how it improves competitiveness. So we'll go through the AS curve. Okay, so that's going to be our rough structure. Okay, let's begin. So introduction says that we aim to decarbonize the economy, but then the problem is that it leads to job displacement. So I've told you that already. So that's in extract 6. So you want competitiveness, you can talk about 2 parts. You can talk about price. Maybe let me use a different color for this. You should talk about price as well as non-price competitiveness. So non-price competitiveness is quality competitiveness. Okay, and then you just state actually I'm talking about competitiveness, which is your requirement. You said it here. And then I also want to talk about employment, which you said here. Okay, so address piece by piece. Okay. Okay, so in a move, so we begin the policy proper. So we say, okay, here's what you said. You said that one policy I can do is to expand the rail network, correct? As part of an infrastructure development. Okay, you can also write about the EV charging stations. Everything is fine. Okay, so how does this help you maintain competitiveness? So in the long run, when more roads, more rail networks are built, this boosts productivity. Okay, so this boosts only increases. This boosts productivities because the workers can commute from one place to another more efficiently, and it saves transport costs. Okay, so on the price, I want to talk about COP, right? And so if you want to talk about COP, then you don't want to write this. So output per unit input will increase. This is fine, but you don't want to link to productive capacity. Okay, you want to talk about COP, so this means that COP will decrease. Usually, when we talk about transport networks, we talk about productive capacity, but this one is not in the question. The question wants competitiveness, so you go target COP instead. So what you do is you write something like this. Yeah, so your COP will fall, AS curve will rise from AS0 to AS1, and then firms pass on the cost savings to households by lowering prices from P0 to P1. This can counteract the impact of the carbon tax on the price competitiveness of Singapore's goods and services, and you maintain the price competitiveness of our goods and services. So link back to the question. Okay, then we also spoke about how infrastructure spending is a component of AD, because if you increase G, you also increase AD. And so if you increase AD, we're going to link this to employment. Okay, we've checked this off already. Now, the price is here. So when you increase AD, output increases, it increases the derived demand for labor, right? So you want to write technical terms. Do your basics well. And then you can go through a brief multiplier, right? And AD will increase from AD0 to AD1. There's a fall in unemployment. The fall in unemployment will combat the jobs displacement due to the move towards decarbonization. So this, you got to link back. To question. The question was on this, the part of the question was on the employment part of it. Okay, so this is policy 1. Okay, second policy, I've chosen R&D subsidies or grants. Again, I've chosen this. I didn't choose labor training programs. I didn't choose monetary policy, because monetary policy, labor training programs, it's very hard to link to decarbonization. So I chose R&D because R&D is more relatable to decarbonization. Okay, so why can't I shift forward? Oh yes. Okay, so if you elaborate what the policy does. So you innovate, you develop cleaner methods of production. So this is related to decarbonization. Okay. At the same time, you want to keep your eye on the price. You are explaining competitiveness, right? So there was some elaboration about decarbonization, but that's not your destination. Your destination is competitiveness. So you want to explain how it links to competitiveness. You go through the same thing. Productivity, COP, AS, GPL, competitiveness. Okay. At the same time, you also can link to quality. So far we haven't talked about quality yet, right? So if you through R&D you develop better quality products, it will boost the non-price competitiveness. and maintain the overall competitiveness of Singapore's goods and services. So again, we link back to competitiveness. Competitiveness is your end state. Okay. Okay, then we get to the conclusion. So 10 mark is 7 plus 3. 7 plus 3 means you got to give some kind of evaluation. So here's what you can say. You can say that your stand is that there are limitations to both policies, so they should be used concurrently to achieve the most desired outcome. And then you can tell me, hey, what are these limitations that you speak of? R&D is very uncertain, so it really depends on the ability and the willingness of the firms. Yeah, so some firms like in the petrochemical or transport industry, they are very energy intensive. They may not be want to conduct R&D even though you provide very generous subsidies for it. Yeah. Then you can say that, out of these two, I feel that government expenditure to increase rail infrastructure is more certain in terms of solving unemployment. So therefore, I should apply both policies concurrently so that they can complement each other. Okay. Beyond this, you can also talk about other points. So you want to pick the one that supports whatever stand that you want to make. So I'll just put everything out here first. So for example, in the case of R&D, you can talk about some kind of unintended consequence. If you remember, for R&D, we link to price competitiveness, we link to non-price, but we didn't link to employment. We can do so here. Okay. Even though you solve demand deficient, you increase structural. Then next one, you can say that both policies take a long time because infrastructure takes a while to be built, and R&D also takes a long time to bear fruit. Right? Because you got to do multiple iterations of trial and error. You can also talk about how both policies can be very, very costly to government, which means that the government budget may fall into a deficit for a few years because it requires continued commitment into these points and into these policies. Okay. I want to clear the writing and just iterate a couple of things, okay? This question is a difficult question. So I really feel it's important for you to learn the skill, because the question as it is, it won't come out again. So learn the skill. So what is the skill that we're trying to learn here? 1, you break the question into parts. And the parts will tell you the requirements. So the requirements are, this is your destination. This is your destination. You need 2 policies. So break the question into parts first. Okay? Then know where each part fits. So what am I talking about? So let's use orange. This is your starting point. Policy is your starting point. Maintain competitiveness, employment. This is your ending point. This is your ending point. The last one is so difficult. Decarbonizing the economy. This was a binding constraint. This was a constraint on the policy selection. Because you couldn't choose labor training programs, you couldn't choose monetary policy, because those policies have nothing to do with decarbonization. Okay? Yeah, so just these are the mental habits I want to get across to you. Okay, that's it for part F.